Everyone, welcome to another episode of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman and Jake Kornblum. What's going on, guys?
Excited, man. Excited. We're hopping into a live mock draft tonight with a bunch of the listeners, so it should be a lot of fun. We'll get to chop it up about the NFL draft through the lens of a mock draft, and then we'll hop into the DU5 Listener League rookie draft review. I figured we'd talk a little bit about that because we did get through a real draft, so it's worth, I think, going through the mock and then going through that, and then probably some Dynasty trades, maybe some other stuff. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Billy's an absolute psychopath and had almost all of the leagues that he's commissioning in fucking start their drafts early. He just put it out in a poll. It was like, hey, everyone want to start? Yes, I did vote yes in all of them. But regardless, I had like 4 rookie drafts start early, and I'm sweating. I'm sweating early.
Blame your league mates. Your league mates requested this. I did not start it this time. They said, well, everybody's paid. Can we get going? Listen, I'm a man of the people, okay? I'm a man of the people for the most part.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully that this is a good tool for the listeners, because clearly I need to do more mocks, as I've probably botched a couple of picks so far in my first couple of drafts. So here we go. Learning forward.
All right, so let's hit on this real quick. So this is actually great because I reached out just to the netherworld on the Hellscape Twitter there, and was just like, does anybody have a list of players that were traded up for? Right. I was trying to keep track. I kept track of every single pick in my own little spreadsheet just to kind of go. And didn't Chinty get traded up for? Anyways, so we have these players that got traded up for, which means, or you could assume, NFL teams valued them much more highly than like just if they were just picked at that spot. They actually gave up extra resources to get them. The one that I'm most excited for here is Isaac Tesla. Detroit Lions traded up. Yeah, traded up. No, and I like a couple of these other guys too, but Isaac Tesla traded up. Detroit traded up to him. He said trade up in the 3rd round, and specific details are not provided.
Yeah,
Woody Marks.
I wouldn't worry about that so much, the actual details. But I think it's interesting though. If this, like, do you think it matters if teams move up for these guys?
I do. That means that they specifically they purposely targeted them, right? Not just like best player available, like who's there. Like they made moves to go get that player. So I think it does matter a little bit. And then if you listen to the pressers, specifically with Detroit, and how they talk about Isaac, talking about how this draft compared to last draft, there was no. He referenced Amon-Ra St. Brown, who also plays for Detroit. He's like, there is no Amon-Ra St. Brown available in the 4th round. So we have to move up. So I don't know. I just thought that was kind of unique when he mentioned that. So
yeah. No, it's interesting. I think it's interesting, like, as you go down to, like, the 7th round where they traded for Brashard Smith, like the Chiefs, right? They traded up for Jalen Royals in the 4th and Brashard Smith in the 7th. I just wonder how, like, it doesn't matter as much to you if it's in the 4th versus the 7th, And we can hop into our mock draft after this. But, Jake, you have any thoughts on that, whether it's, difference between the 4th and the 7th for you?
Yeah, I think that there's a difference in both, and I don't think that they're necessarily like drastically different. In the 7th, I think it actually has a little bit more additional value, because if someone does drop to undrafted free agency, you know, it is basically a true free-for-all. So being able to get, probably a pretty lateral move, which is usually what they end up doing in the 7th, and just getting your guy has a lot more value. So you don't have to get into a situation like what Nick Nash did, right? Like, I'm pretty sure basically right when the draft ended, Nick Nash and Atlanta basically announced that they had agreed to terms, which is not unheard of, but like, you just know now, as the rest of the league, like, that was the guy they really wanted. And you just don't know, if you're Kansas City, if you go get your guy. Like, if Brashard Smith is your guy, he happens to be a relatively well sought after running back, and you are in running back need, which they are, I think you go get your guy. And it's a pretty good spot to be in. If you're Brashard Smith, that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to look into as you head into your rookie drafts. Like, I do think this information is like it's not like the most important, but it's a nice little thing to understand as you kind of break ties between certain players in your rookie draft. So, with that said, I guess let's hop into the mock. All right. Looks like we have most people on. Hopefully, if they aren't, they set their queues like they should. But 8:07, plenty of time for people to get going. Ready? Everybody ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm
Love
gonna do
it.
it from my phone because I've never done it on the desktop before.
It's probably smart. It's probably smart. The desktop is a little clunky, and I'm gonna start it from my phone. All right, let's do it.
This works. All right.
Minute 30 on the clock. Good. That one might run through.
Yeah, and I think we gave enough shout outs to everyone to hopefully add a queue as well. So hopefully that will give us a good understanding of where people are ranking individual players and, you know, at bare minimum, get a good grasp of like where this draft should and should not go. Clearly, I guess maybe a good starting off question is like, do you think that folks in rookie drafts tend to draft more for need or best player available in their own dynasty leagues? Or what do you two do? I guess it's maybe even a better.
Well, I try not to go need if possible, though I think, sometimes you can marry the two together. But I do think more often than not, people fall into the need trap, right? Where it's like, I need a running back, so I'm going for the running back. Now, again, sometimes those things, you can marry the two where you're at 103, 104, and it's like Hampton sitting there, it's first round running back. It's kind of perfect. Like he's the guy anyway, right? So it makes sense. But yeah, like Iston said here, hybrid of BPA and need for sure. Thoughts on that, Uriah?
Yeah, you never want to get your teams in a position where like this draft I have to get running backs because I don't have any more. Like they're all aged out or whatever. But it does happen. I mean, things happen fast and NFL moves fast. So like, eventually you end up with the team. You're like, damn. But yeah, try to take best player available. But
yeah, absolutely. Jake, what about you? I mean, I feel like. Oh, what about you? Thoughts?
Yeah, I think more often than not, I'm going to end up picking best player available regardless of need and find other ways to fill needs. I just don't really believe in feeling like I need to fit a specific need. So yeah, I don't even think it's necessarily a mix for me. It's really just down to making sure that I go get my guy, which is realistically what I've been doing in almost all of my rookie drafts and why you'll probably see what you see in this draft, right? Like I think I'm picking probably above what most people would end up doing at the 102. And this is realistically what I'm going to do in every single rookie draft at either the 102 or 103, even though, ADP says that I'm going to end up being able to get Hunter maybe at the 105, 106. I just don't really think at the end of the day, I'm really going to necessarily see that differentiation, or I'm even going to be able to find it, honestly. Except the only other player that I could potentially see and be part of that conversation would be probably Cam Ward. I
was going to ask, is there a situation where you could actually, like this might be the first year since like maybe people messed up with Clyde Edwards-Helaire that, it's super flex draft and our quarterback's not going first, not even second a lot of the time. So yeah. I'm wondering if people will regret not doing that, just not taking the quarterback.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's just another quarterback with warts, like Anthony Richardson, right? We did similar, not like different because he had the rushing upside. Cam Ward doesn't have the rushing upside, and that's his main wart, other than being a little unrefined in general. But we've done this before. We take the 101, the quarterback goes, 1 overall, whatever, top 3, top 4, and they don't work out. So like, I don't think it's super crazy to let him go to like 104. It's really not a far drop. I mean, he does have a few warts, and these guys, Ashton Genty, nearly flawless prospect, Travis Hunter, they trade up for the 102, nearly flawless prospect. And then we get to Omari and Hampton, really quality prospect. I think it all makes sense. Like these guys make a little more sense. They're a little more proven, I think, players. So, yeah, so right now we have, go through the picks here. We have Ashton Genty, we have Travis Hunter. Jake took Travis Hunter at 2. We can come back to that in a second. Omari and Hampton at 103. Cam Ward at 104. Tet McMillan 105. Trevian Henderson 106. Amika Ibuka at 107. And then Judkins at 108 right now. And we'll come back and talk through these a little bit. So Travis Hunter at 2, I like that. I agree with you, Jake. I've talked about how I think he's the best player in the draft in general. And, from an NFL perspective for sure. And then I think from a fantasy perspective, they move up to 2 and they're like this guy's playing wide receiver first and foremost. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it. I think a lot of people are. I have seen him go to the 105, 106 range. I'm kind of kicking myself. I had a chance to move up from, I think it was the 107 to the 106 to get Hunter. And it's my turn to pick here. But it was for like 2 seconds on top of my first, and I didn't do it. And I think it might have been worth it. I ended up going Henderson after that. But I do think it could have been worth it there. But yeah, let me make my pick, and you guys can hop into maybe talking about Hampton at 3 and Ward at 4.
Yeah, and just really quickly, Timothy in the comments has a really good point. He's like, Travis Hunter's floor is interesting to me. Seems like we only factor in his absolute ceiling outcome. And I think that's completely fair. You know, he is technically wide receiver 2 right now in his offense. And I do think that, you know, there is some staggering that could potentially happen to his point scoring. I don't think that there's anything necessarily negating that fact, right? But I do think that in general, I don't want to buy into the concerns of how other wide receivers are going to impact the way in which a prospect is going to necessarily land in a specific offense. I think we've seen that issue too many times with other assets, very similar to Jamar Chase, for instance. When he fell into Cincinnati, we were so concerned with T. Higgins being there that folks were basically pushed off of Jamar. I just don't see that as a concern. I think that Travis Hunter is truthfully the best prospect in this draft. And if I can get him at 102, and I think that he has possibility to outplay and potentially outscore Brian Thomas Jr., then I'm going to draft against that. Like that's just has to be my belief and why I'm part of that process.
And sorry if I missed while I was looking down at my phone if you mentioned this part, but it's also the wide receiver 2 in his offense. I don't know if that's true. Like, I understand that that's where, you know, he enters maybe today, but he was drafted much higher in a maybe worse draft than Brian Thomas. But I think he probably would have been drafted over Brian Thomas in this if they were in the same draft. And I think he could easily take over the wide receiver 1 job there. I don't think it's, you know, it's cemented that BTJ is the guy there. So I do think that there's some question on that. But yeah, I think Hunter's a great prospect. I think that if you get him anywhere past the 102, 103, you are getting a steal. We can move on a little bit. I mean, Hampton's pretty much locked in 102 to 104 pick. Chalk. So like, I don't know if we need to talk about that much. Great situation. You know, I think Uriah has come maybe around a little bit on Hampton post draft now that he's first round in you know, with the Chargers. So Cam Ward at 104. Honestly, at this point, do we all agree you kind of just got to take the quarterback at 104? Like,
take him or trade back.
Right. I've tried, and I've been in that situation. I tried to trade back. I think it was DU2 where I've taken a bunch of risky quarterbacks, and I did it again because I couldn't get out of it. And I feel like I had to do it there, honestly. Here's where it gets interesting. Ted McMillan, 105. I think there's some debate within the community if you know, who's wide receiver 1 in this draft, Ted McMillan or Travis Hunter, you know, and that's because I think Ted McMillan is a little more traditional. But yeah, 105. I guess I'm definitely comfortable with Ted there. I don't love Carolina landing spot, despite, you know, things getting better there. But I think I'd rather go Henderson. Thoughts?
Same.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, it would be if I've done a couple of these drafts. I know maybe this is not the best process or whatever, but I'm gonna diversify, right? I know I'm gonna end up with a share of Henderson in and around that range. So if it comes to a situation where I do have Henderson, I might just take Ted. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys, but I don't want to be holding a bunch of shares of one guy that busts, right? So I kind of try to spread it out.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely something to that, especially if you're comfortable with both profiles at some level. So again, like, I don't think Ted's a bad profile. I graded him out pretty good from a film perspective, so I'd be fine getting into him. Man, it depends on, I guess, what my portfolio looks like. I don't have that many leagues where I'm like super concerned about the portfolio aspect of it, though I am in quite a few leagues. Okay, let's move on. 107, we have Emeka Egbuka. This is a guy who I have a ton of trouble with because I like his profile so much. I do think long-term, you know, we're looking at JSN type arc here. Type arc, not exactly the same, but I think that's kind of the trajectory we're on. 107, man, it's a little early given kind of where I think you could maybe get him down the road and maybe you could even trade back in that situation. But I like Egbuka, so I can't hate on the 107, but I do think it's a little early.
Is that the same setup or concern that we had with JSN when he got drafted by Seattle, being behind DK and Tyler Lockett? Are we sitting in the same space mentally? Is that what it is?
I'm really baking on the fact
for
that
me.
Mike Evans is like 31. Chris Godwin's is almost there, and his ankle came apart last year. These are all real things that, I mean, I honestly, I mean, this is a situation where, I mean, there's a real chance that you could probably just wait on Ibuka, I think, until the fall. But taking him here, I mean, you got him, right? Instead of like, what if he does pop off and you can't get him? So it's an interesting thing. I think he's a dynamic player. Yard per route run in his final year, like first round draft pick. I mean, I just think that he has one of the better profiles out of the group here. And I think I'm fine taking him at 1.7 there.
That's completely fair. And, that's the same thing that we were basically doing in this draft with JSN. I think his ADP was somewhere around the 107 to 109. And it was just dependent on what you thought of, his actual value. I think it was between JSN, QJ, and Flowers basically in like a row of their ADP that year. So I think that makes sense. So the next one is an interesting one. Quinshon Judkins. I think he's kind of a tumultuous asset, especially amongst the podcast as a whole. We don't necessarily love him. Do we like his landing spot in Cleveland?
Yes. I do like his landing spot in Cleveland. But I also really like the guy that they also drafted later on.
Dylan Sampson?
Yes. So, I mean, I don't like Dylan Sampson as much as I like Judkins, but man, I don't know how far off there. I just think that Judkins doesn't have like a full skill set. Like, it's just different. And then it's Cleveland, right? So, but it's wide open there. So that day one, first person getting the ball handed to him is probably going to be Judkins, right? And the ghost of Jared Ford, Drum Ford, but I doubt it.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And, it's funny because Sampson doesn't particularly have a pretty wide echelon of tape for his receiving upside. And so there's a good chance that Drum Ford very well could be a third down back, right? Like he very well could have that receiving upside that's needed on 3rd and 12. And it's kind of crazy because it looks like he should be dead in technicality, but I don't think he's going to be. And I don't know. Like there is a world where he should be though, right? Like it's just bizarre to me.
You have a guy that just been hanging around as Nick Chubb's backup, and he's doing a great job doing it. But then, this team, Cleveland Browns, is telling you something about that running back room. You don't take two guys, in a draft like that. Instead of like just drafting your one running back and then, picking up a guy undrafted, right? Just to add to the room. Like they spent capital for yet another running back. So it does make you worry about Jerome Ford a little bit.
Yeah. And I guess the next dude is literally this very similar situation where we're like, what is going to happen with Jackson Dart? Like, what do we think the Giants are going to end up using or seeing his trajectory be as a starting athlete? Is he going to be a starting quarterback in 2025?
Yeah, probably.
Oof. Jackson Dart, man, this is such a tough one. I've seen him go at 1.9 here, and I'm sitting in a draft at 2.3, and he is still on the board. So that's pretty crazy. I know. And I know I have to take him. I have to. And I'm like, oh, should I take Jake Higgins because I need a receiver? And it's like, I'll find a receiver somewhere else. Like,
find the receiver.
Jackson, and again, Jake shared with kind of, what Tommy put together in terms of the trajectory of, a first round quarterback over time. And it's pretty much they stabilize or they rise back to peak value or somewhere near. So I think it's a good bet. Jackson Dart, 1.9, 1.10, 1.11, 1.12, great area for him there for sure. Any later than that, you need to jump in there as fast as you can. All right, so here we go, getting into the tight ends. I think this is an interesting spot, right? We're talking about Colston, Loveland, Tyler, Warren area. So we have at the end of this draft, at the end of the first round, 110 Colston, Loveland, 112 Caleb Johnson. I'm sorry, 111 Caleb Johnson, 112 Tyler Warren. So Colston Loveland, I think it's a good spot for him. Like, I'm not too scared away from the landing spot personally, despite there being tons of mouths to feed. I mean, I think he's a really good player, plays a unique role there. Obviously, Kmet, I think, is probably on the outs with this pick.
You're right. You're up.
Sorry.
About
sorry.
Sharing
I was enamored with Billy.
Just the beautiful face. So, I mean, I guess how do we feel about Colston Loveland versus Tyler Warren? And how do you feel about him in that spot, 110?
Oof. Yeah, I think 110 feels like a pretty good range. I know a lot of people are pretty out on the tight ends in general getting drafted in the first round, mainly because of kind of the turnaround time and turnaround time for tight end development, that is, in terms of like when they're actually going to hit, knowing that their value is probably going to fluctuate quite a bit and get hit relatively negatively. It's funny because I do think depending on scoring settings, I can see myself in probably 0.75 tight end premium going as high as the 106, 107 for Colston Loveland. Anything higher than that, I can even see myself going maybe even 105. But in probably half tight end premium and lower, it's really tough. Like, this is the range. It feels like this is going to be the range, but this isn't the range that I necessarily want to be taking that bet on.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm good with Loveland there. Like I said, I'm not scared away from the landing spot. I do think Caleb Johnson probably has or is going to have more value, like community value. So I think you can definitely get away with, fading the tight ends here out of the out of the late first round. But I do think, one of them pretty much is locked into the 112 spot. No matter what, it's hard to get off the value there. I do think that, the first round selection and how high they went, it's pretty appetizing. So I can't blame anyone for doing it, though I do think Tyler Warren, you have a much better chance of getting cheaper down the road, which we've talked about before. And I feel like just with the other players in this draft going, that's definitely more true of him than the others. Let me make my pick here.
I was going to say on the clock.
I hate having to make this selection, honestly, but I feel like the value is too good there.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's nothing
I
wrong
don't
with
love
that.
him, but the value is great. So I mean, that we'll talk about it when we get there. But Harold Fannin at 311 seems crazy. But that said, let's get to the 201 here. Luther Burden. Man, these Chicago picks were just absolutely strange to me. Like I like Luther Burden. I also get like that he could fit a role in the Ben Johnson offense, but a lot of risk there just in general with the profile. A lot of wide receivers already. They go Colston Loveland. Man, I can't find myself drafting a ton of Luther Burden despite liking the talent. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, I really do like the talent. It's unfortunate, but I'm very much in. Oh, son of a bitch. Sorry, I was gonna take Shador there. I apologize
good spot
for my language, even though I've said significantly worse on the air before. Yeah, I think for me, it's really comes down to like, am I going to reap the benefits of this pick in the next 12 months? And I just don't think I'm going to. I've seen Burden go as high as the 109 and I was low as basically, this is actually the lowest I've ever seen him go. I've seen him go the 112, basically. It was the lowest in about 7 or 8 real drafts. And yeah, like, I just don't want to really pay that right now. And I know it sounds ridiculous because I really do like the talent. I just don't think he overcomes the obstacles that are there over the next 12 months.
All right. Yeah, that's fair.
How do you guys feel about the next pick, RJ Harvey?
Clearly,
well, we have a question here.
Oh.
If you only need RBs and RBs are taken early, is 106 too early to take RJ Harvey? Absolutely, way too early, in my opinion.
Yes,
there's definitely some risk with that profile.
I mean, if the draft went running back, and RJ Harvey was the next one on there, then you take, I don't know, Travis Hunter. It's just too early for me. I mean, one thing that we have to be concerned about with RJ Harvey, although I think he's going to smash this year, he is an older back. If you're on social media, people are bringing that up a lot today, which is a valid point.
Aegis.
Well, he's 24. He's before he even gets to his end of his rookie contract, he's going to be an aging running back. So I don't know.
That's a fair point.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Definitely a fair point, but I think 2-2. I still don't hate it there. I just haven't found myself able to find my way into an RJ Harvey profile. And honestly, I'd probably end up going Matthew Golden there, even though I don't love him instead of Harvey. Man, yeah. But I get it. I do like the landing spot. I know that Peyton is one to share the backfield or try to, but he always, I think, seems to have kind of a workhorse style guy, or not. I don't know if you want to call it that, but he has a a 1A and a 1B, and I could see Harvey being that at least short term. So I like the profile enough. Matthew Golden at 2-3. Dude runs super fast. He gets drafted in the first round, goes to Green Bay, and we still don't love him that much. I mean, I think he's kind of buried over there. I don't think he is that much different than what they already have, to be honest. Despite getting the draft capital, there's definitely reason to be intrigued. But I don't know. He's another one who I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of unless I'm like exactly at like 2-2-2 here. Thoughts, Jake?
I think that's the situation, right? Like, I do think that he has similar traits to some of the other wide receivers in the team, but they clearly saw that there was something different in his profile. Like, I know what we see, but at the end of the day, I have to trust kind of their process and understand that they want to continue to add different things to kind of the work that they're doing. I very much would be happy with Matthew Golden near the end of the first. I think him falling into the early second is pretty good value. And it's not necessarily an offense I'm scared of because they've never really invested in it, if that makes sense. So this is the first time that we've really seen the investment go into wide receiver. We saw what happened when they invested in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. They gave both of them a shot. One of them succeeded, and now one of them is their true tight end one. I think that this just very much the reality of kind of what Matt LaFleur sees. What about you, Uriah?
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, I definitely feel the opposite of you as far as like where he's going. You're saying fine at like 111, 112. I'm thinking, 2-3, 2-4 is probably worse. I am definitely not as high on Golden as you guys are. And it really has to do with. I mean, Billy and I have been screaming about this for years now. That whole Green Bay wide receiver room, it's a headache. It's a headache. And for what?
It is.
You're never going to have that like 140 target, 130 target, 120 target wide receiver. The coach has said so himself. He doesn't care to have a wide receiver one. So I don't think that Matthew Golden has I don't think he has high enough T to go in there and become hey, I'm the alpha. This is my wide receiver room. I don't think he has what it takes to earn it. I think he has what it takes to be a very, very, very good low end wide receiver one, high end wide receiver two, along with Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Chantavian Wicks, Christian Watson, and Tucker Kraft.
Who has the highest draft capital out of the list of folks you just listed?
Matthew Golden. Oh, the list.
No, well,
Christian Watson.
Clearly, yeah. Sorry, I meant clearly Matthew Golden because this is the first time I think they drafted a wide receiver in the first since like 2002.
Christian Watson, I believe,
was in the second or third. Second.
Yeah, okay. Second. High second, I think.
Yeah.
So no, I understand you're saying, hey, they're investing more than they ever have before. I get that. I really do. It just doesn't eliminate all the other factors for me.
No, by all means, I don't think. Yeah, it would be blind. By all means, like it would be like gross negligence on my part to be like that history doesn't exist. But I do think that this is also a new path that we've never seen before. So it's hard to necessarily assert the historical context completely one-to-one and say that that's what's going to happen. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to see how they end up using him. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Bashal Tutin ends up getting used in Jacksonville. Like what's going to go on in that backfield?
Oh God, I don't know, but all I know is he'll be scooting. Whenever he gets that ball, he'll be scooting. I like the Tutin pick. He gives him a little bit of lightning there. Tank Bigsby. They're just a different skill set, right? Definitely a more fun skill set coming out of Tutin than what they already have there. But still, you're looking at like a three-headed monster right now, so it's a little murky. But at the 2-4, I think that's fine. I prefer like 2-6, 2-7, but that's probably just not happening very often.
Yeah, would you go Cam Scatterbo over him?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I think I would probably go Cam Scatterbo. I could see him more easily finding the lead role than Tutin, even though like it's very shaky over there too. It's just I think he has a couple more hurdles to overcome than Scatterbo does. I find myself taking Mason Taylor kind of in that area quite a bit in drafts, to be honest with you. Like, I don't want to be overloaded on like a Scatterbo or Tutin profile. There's plenty of risk in that. In the second round, Mason Taylor in a spot where they really need him, I think fits a little bit better in that area, in that range. He went a little bit later than that in this one. But before we move on with these, I want to hit some of the chat real quick here.
Sure.
I do think, in terms of the Matthew Golden, and they drafted a 6'4" running back, Savion, who will take opportunities. I mean, they did draft Savion in the 3rd round. There's certainly potential that he pans out to do something, and that's just adding to the already thin target distribution, right? So, Golden's jersey number will be number 22. Not sure about the aura associated with that, Timothy. Great point. Not sure if number 22. Well, that may be more suited for a Savion than it is for Matthew Golden, but we'll see how that works out.
Funny.
Wish I showed up at the beginning of the show. Would have drafted or would have taken that anyway. That's our first overall pick, Genty. Yep, no problem. Appreciate you being here. Etienne will be drafted. He did not go in this draft.
Traded.
Travis, or be traded. Etienne will be traded. Sorry. Okay. Well, I was thinking about the other guy, but yeah, that's very likely. Very possible.
Older brother already forgotten.
Yeah. But no, it's very possible that Etienne is traded. I think that there's going to be some shakeup there, but they do like Tank Bigsby a bit. I'm wondering how that's going to shake out between those two, to be honest with you. Okay, cool. So we can move forward here. Trey Harris. This is one that I kind of was texting Jake about a little bit earlier. I'm wondering if we're a little too low on him. Collectively, we have Trey Harris a little bit lower than the community. I can go check our delta between us and ADP, but how do you guys feel about Trey Harris at 2.6? LA Chargers selection in the second round.
Yeah. I'm all for Trey Harris somewhere in the middle of the 2nd round. I like him over Arroyo. I don't like him over Mason Taylor. Give or take Jaden Higgins. I think that's a coin flip situation, truth be told. And then in that, I think I'd like the offense more in LA than in Houston. Jack Betch, I think that's kind of same thing. It's like, what offense do I prefer process and prospect wise? I can't say I really liked Betch that much more than Harris, so I'd be fine with the draft capital. I just don't really see him higher. Like the guys ahead of him are all players that I would rather take over him personally.
That's fair. I think like looking at the board, we have Golden 2.3 and Harris 2.6. And I just based on what we've been talking about, I think I'd swap those two. But
okay.
Yeah. And so we're 5 spots below the market pretty much on Harris. So we're a little lower on him. And as I was going through kind of the conversation of Harris, I was looking at him and Higgins, and those are two that I kind of struggle with. It's like both likely the wide receiver 2 on the team, right? But both with pretty good quarterbacks. And it's like, it's a very similar situation. It's just like, who do you think is the more likely success? And I think, for us, both film and, the analytics are there for Trey Harris, but there's also there's definitely some that aren't there for him. And so, same with Higgins, though. I just think Higgins, from a film perspective, I think he kind of, he kind of beats him out there. And that's why at least Jake and I are a little bit higher on Higgins. Okay. Elijah Arroyo. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Elijah Arroyo. This is one I'm also kind of interested in. Seattle. He goes to Seattle, and I was talking to Jake about this. I was like, do I have why don't I like Arroyo? And he was like, is it the Seattle, past tight end usage bias? And I was like, yeah, probably is some of that. But I also don't know if Sam Darnold's that good. Like, is he really going to support all these guys and support a rookie tight end? And I don't know. I don't really know. So I'm much more comfortable with Mason Taylor at 2.09 than Arroyo at 2.7. And I would definitely have Mason Taylor probably 5 spots ahead of where he went. So, yeah, how do you guys feel about those two in comparison?
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. It's kind of like it's pick your poison, right? The whole Royal thing, I'm thinking Cooper Kupp is rather old. And I'm not really banking on just Sam Darnold being the guy. Like, who knows who's going to be the guy there going forward. I just think that with the vacated Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Elijah Arroyo coming in there, the way they talked about him, about all the routes he could run, they spoke of him as a wide receiver. They didn't speak of him about, man, he's really good at blocking. And also, it's like, I think they envision him as being able to catch passes for them on day one. And so I'm kind of banking on that.
That's fair. Timothy, just going back on the Trey Harris thing, we've seen Chargers try to find this profile before with Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, might not work out. Great point. that is the thing about Trey Harris, is he is kind of a deep ball merchant, right? Like kind of 9-route merchant type guy, at least in college. I mean, I think for me, I do think when I watch him on tape, I think the breakdown even indicates some of this. I do think there's a little bit more nuance there to his game through the stem of the routes, but I don't think the route tree was super diverse, and I think there's a lot more to learn there for him. But he's definitely a super athletic guy, and in that offense, you're kind of hoping for the same thing before, like you said, Quentin Johnson. It's kind of that all over again, or a little bit worse profile actually, probably on paper. Okay, we can move on. Jack Betch, this is an interesting one. I definitely have seen him go way higher than 210, like much more middle of the second, early second round pick kind of deal. He goes to the Vegas Raiders where they have Jacoby Myers, similar kind of skill sets, I feel like, but maybe he can elevate to the wide receiver one of that team. I'm not sure. Geno Smith doesn't give me ultra confidence. He's fine. Good guy, good quarterback, not great. I think a lot of this offense is going to go through, running back and tight end though. So I'm not like super excited about the usage that Jack Betch could potentially get. So I'm much more comfortable down here at 210 than I am up in the second. How do you feel about that, Jake?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is exactly where I would be comfortable drafting him. And I don't really have that much commentary about it. I just think that this is actually a really good landing spot. His draft capital was great. He got drafted in the second. He's not really going to have a ton of competition to actually be on the field. So I think his usage is going to be great. I just don't know what that usage is actually going to turn into, right? So to Billy's point, it's like he might be on the field for 95% of the snaps across, all 17 games in his rookie year, but does that only equate to 70 targets? Maybe. I don't know what that translates to. And I guess that's one of my biggest issues. So in the late second, it sounds like a pretty good situation. Billy and I were talking about this a little bit, and I was like, realistically, I think a really nice ceiling situation for him could be like in the low thousands, probably somewhere in that 70 reception area, maybe 4 to 5 touchdowns. It's not a bad rookie season. It's just, will things kind of transition and change as this offense kind of gels a little bit more? And then, there's maybe a little bit more defensive schematics around how to stop Ashton Genty. I think that very much could be the reality.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the lack of ability downfield really limits the upside. So I think your point, 70 catches, 1,000 yards, that kind of deal makes a lot of sense actually, right? Because it'd be more short area after the catch stuff. So I could see him having kind of a low ADOT, high yak year.
Yep.
That's the kind of player I think we're going to see out of him. Okay. Next one here, it feels like kind of a reach, but then when you look at the rest of the players, I'm not sure it is. But definitely is a little bit of a reach. Jarquez Hunter, Rams running back. I thought he got pretty good draft capital. It was similar or ahead of where they took Corum last year. And so, I think they want to right the potential mistake that they see they made there. I mean, Corum was seldom used last year, not very successful. So yeah, I like Jarquez Hunter. I like the profile. I like the film. I think in general, we did the profile on him and we were all kind of like, wow, this guy looks a lot better both by the numbers and by the tape than we'd think. So reaching a little bit at 211, but I think that's what you're going to have to do with some of these running backs as you get near the third round. You're going to start losing both the draft capital and the talent level, in my opinion. So I felt like I wasn't going to get a better player and a receiver there. I could have probably maybe taken a shot on a quarterback, but yeah, I like the Hunter pick here. Any issues with my Hunter selection?
Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
Go for it, Jake. That you didn't get him?
No. I think that in a practical setting, we're probably looking at not the next pick, but the 5 picks after that as probably being in the range of players that I would probably rather take over Jarquez Hunter. Terrence Ferguson realistically has a straight path to being tight end 1 in a Rams offense. We don't really know what that looks like in all honesty. A lot of things are going to be changing over next year.
Yeah,
sure. I see your face. I get it. Next,
no, it's fine. That's fine. I don't take
next
that much
would be
issue. I just don't
Jalen
like
Milroe. I've spoken pretty highly of Jalen Milroe in the past. I really do think that if we are going to see the ceiling opportunities of someone like Anthony Richardson, and we were happy to draft him as a top 3 pick in our rookie drafts, we should be more than happy to take Jalen Milroe in the late second, knowing that if and when he gets an opportunity to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, his rushing upside is going to be basically elite. Jaden Blue, receiving back for Dallas. I just think that there's a lot of upside to high reception volume running backs, especially in PPR leagues. That's the only reason I would take him over Jarquez Hunter. That's not really in Jarquez's game. Kyle Williams, I think just path to success for Kyle is really, really solid, and someone that I would want to kind of be in on, probably in the same range. And somehow he's falling in a lot of leagues. So maybe that could be seen as some bias, but I'd be more than happy at like the 211 to 303 range getting into Kyle. And then lastly, and probably not least, even though I don't love the prospect, like this is one of those where I'm going against like my own process, but I think it makes sense in a dynasty superflex landscape, is drafting Tyler Shugg. It's like, why would I not want to go after a player that has the least path of resistance to becoming the starting quarterback out of basically everyone here post Cam Ward? Like, I would even say that he has a better shot than Jackson Dart to become the starting quarterback earlier in the NFL season. Why would I not take the risk on a late second to go draft him, regardless if I like him or not? Like, that's just kind of where my mentality is when I'm looking at those next 5 assets and why I would take them over Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that like I said before, I think you could definitely make an argument for the quarterbacks, and I'd probably make a good argument for Kyle Williams. I was hoping that, and I think what it is with Kyle Williams is just the ADP is getting him buried, and so that's why people are forgetting about him. I was hoping that was going to happen here, and I'd get him in the 3rd round. Potentially, knowing that you might, well, it's, it's also practical. Like, you don't want to reach on a guy that you potentially get later. So you're trying to kind of balance that, right? Like, I didn't think Hunter would make it back to my next pick for sure. But yeah, Shug, I think is good. A good argument. Milrow too. Williams. I'm not as excited about Blue. I don't think the DC was great. And I think Phil Maffa is going to be like a 1-2 punch. And though he could have, good potential as a pass catching back, I think that's a fair argument. I don't really like Ferguson that much, but yeah, the draft capital and landing spot are solid. So that's good arguments. Okay. Yeah, we kind of talked through those guys. What about Pat Bryant? I think it's a little bit higher than I'd expect Pat Bryant to go. Wide receiver, Denver goes at 306.
You mean Michael Thomas Jr.?
I mean, he's a big dude.
No, that's what Sean Payton said. That's what Sean Payton said. Sorry. Go ahead, you're right.
Well, he's a big dude. Prototypical big wide receiver. In wide receiver room that's pretty open, I guess. I mean, we got Cortland Sutton, and then they got Cortland Sutton. So, I mean, I see a path for, Bryant to have a good rookie wide receiver year. Obviously does different things than Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin face planted last year. Cortland Sutton is aging. So there's a situation where I think at 3.6 is a pretty good bet to try to snag the potential wide receiver 1 for Denver. Maybe not this year, but maybe it comes next year. The value is really good. So,
okay, interesting. You feel about the same, Jake? Or
yeah, it's funny because he was a player that I was trying to trade into, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we recap the DU5 draft. But he was someone I was trying to trade into the 4th round for, because he was just kind of sitting there in like mid 4th, and someone I was trying to get, unfortunately, just didn't land on it. But I do think that there's a path that makes a lot of sense there, to Uriah's point, that like when you just look at the depth chart, you look at kind of his usage at Syracuse or Illinois. I get confused between those two colors for some reason. I'm going to go with Illinois for some. Yeah, I'm going to go with Illinois. I could be wrong, but we'll go with Illinois. He puts himself in a situation where we had Devon Valley. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Basically go as a 27-year-old wide receiver into that offense, get a ton of usage in a couple of random weeks. And I just see a place where Pat Bryant basically slots right into that, but is the actual clear-cut starter on a weekly basis. So as kind of like a 3rd round flyer, this makes a lot of sense to me. And it's between him and the next guy. Those would be the 2 dudes that I would be looking at probably the most, with maybe a Woody Marks being the 3rd option there. But Jalen Royals, to the point that you were almost bringing up before, Billy, Kansas City trades up for him, grabs their guy.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about his yards after catch, his running after catch ability. The dude does have a lot of kind of flexibility with what his usage looks like. And Kansas City is notorious for using players in flexible matters and knowing how to basically scheme around them. Jalen Royals definitely has a place in my heart because I loved his tape, but I also think that there's a place in Andy Reid's heart, and there's a reason why they traded up for him.
And that's why I took him with the 3-7.
Yeah, I think that's solid there at the 3-7. Dylan Sampson, you guys talked about him a little earlier, 308. That's fine there. I'm not super encouraged about his game. I also am not sure if he's even really a threat to Judkins. I think you guys kind of worked through that earlier, so that's fine. Woody Marks, I think he's definitely a candidate for somewhere between 3.6 and 3.8 here or so. The fact that they traded up for him, Houston, another one, right? That they traded up for Woody Marks. Was it 4th round? I think they moved up to get him, or was it 3rd? I think it was the 4th round. And so, round. I mean, either way, I mean, I think that, that shows you that this is a guy that they're targeting. They have an older running back there. So I think, with the film grade that we put out on him, the numbers are decent. So yeah, I like Woody Marks. I like the profile a lot. I think that's a great pick. Devin Neal, 7th round selection for the New Orleans Saints. Not much else there. Pretty decent profile coming out of college. Like, we kind of liked him. Yeah, like, I like it. I like that. I like it. It's just hard to get yourself to pick him over some of the other players around based on like the draft capital and stuff that they have. Like, you could even talk yourself into Trevor Etienne instead, because you're like, he got 4th round draft capital or whatever he got instead of 7th round draft capital. But it's like, there's literally nobody there, and he could get some usage. And so, like, I don't mind selecting Devin Neal over a Trevor Etienne, who goes at 312, right? So, like, I don't mind that so much. But Harold Fannin, he fell to me at 311. I feel like you can't let him fall any further. Got really high draft capital. I'm not excited about him. I don't love him, but here I feel like you just draft him and trade him. You know what I mean? Call it a day. What did I say, Jake? What did I do?
No, I agree. I just love how honest you are. You're like, I don't like him, but I drafted him. I agree. That's what I was saying about Tyler Shough too. It's like there are places where you have to draft players, and there's too much of this like narrative about like go get your guy. There's also this other narrative about go getting a guy that you don't like, knowing that the value is too good, because there's going to be someone else in your league that's going to be willing to overpay for them. And the reality is that there's too large of a gap between now and all of the hype that is going to live after this draft about these players till the start of the season that you'll be able to sell them. So I know everyone's like, oh, well, what if they suck? It's like, well, there's a good chance that they might end up sucking. That's great. But as long as you're vigilant, I do think that you can probably get off of literally any asset in Dynasty fantasy football as long as you try hard enough. There's maybe like 2 that are like Will Levis right now is basically a leper. But like outside of that, I think you can get off of every asset.
I do think that's
you're
fair.
right. You're muted.
We're talking about late 3rd round picks here. Like,
about playoffs.
They're probably all gonna suck.
Yeah,
it's just the truth. And then the next 12, they're probably gonna suck too. But you never know, right? You just take them based on value, or get your guy, whatever, do your thing. But you can't like let it affect you too much, right? Unless all you have is 3rd round picks. Yeah.
Is that you in one league?
Close.
Right?
D2, I have like 6 round picks.
Well, I hope you like what you're seeing on this screen right
now.
You're like a pig in mud.
I've been trying to move up.
Oh boy!
I'm gonna pair all of my 6 together, or all my 3rds together.
It was just at the end of the year. I'm like, how did that happen?
Real quick here from the YouTube chat, Shug will climb to the 2nd round ADP within a week. Yeah, I think the end of that 2nd round is going to look, maybe when everything shakes out, a lot more like Milroe, Shug, and Kyle Williams in there somehow, and some other guys maybe moving down a little further. So I think that's fair. And Jake's criticism of my pick, because he hates me, is fair. Definitely fair. Real quick here, sup boys? What's up, Slashy? And then last one here, could Jaden Blue become the next Tony Pollard for the Cowboys? I wasn't super in on Tony. It's a good comp. I wasn't super in on Tony Pollard as a rusher. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But I almost think Jaden Blue is a little more limited as a rusher even than Tony Pollard. I think he doesn't really carry size very well, and I think Tony Pollard at least did that a little bit better than Jaden Blue. So it could be off there, but I think there might be a little bit less from the rushing standpoint from him, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's move on to the fourth round, 401, Shedeur Sanders. You got to take him at this point. Like he probably should have gone. If Fanning wasn't there, I would have taken Shedeur Sanders. I definitely think he should be, in the third round. He has just as good a chance of starting as Dylan Gabriel or whoever the hell else is on that roster, Joe Flacco. I mean, I'm sure Joe Flacco will start. He could take over. Not good odds, but yeah, fourth round, great pick for him, I think. And I think we all agree with that. How do we feel about Brashard Smith at 4-2?
I mean, if it's a need for the NFL team, again, we talked about it earlier, they traded up for him. So if they're willing to run 7th round Isaiah Pacheco out there, which I don't think they traded up for, this guy could do what they want at the running back position, right? I think
you're right. Speaking my language.
Pretty good, pretty good bet in the 4th round there.
And also, like, maybe this is just bad practice, but I believe in teams that show that they're willing to give assets chances regardless of their draft capital. So like when teams like the Rams give a pass to Puka Nacua and give him the opportunity to basically be a starter on day one, that allows me to now know that Kanata Mumfield is not actually hindered by his draft capital. And everyone is scared of players like that, right? That's kind of where my mind sits with Brashard Smith. It's like Brashard Smith, sure, he fell into the 7th, but I know sure as shit if he shows enough in rookie camp and then he shows enough in their preseason, he's going to fight for a chance. And that's all they care about. So organization matters to me. I don't just give this up to any organization to be able to do it, but I do think that the Kansas City Chiefs are the perfect spot. They traded up for him, I think, is even a nicer plus to the point that we were talking about before. They didn't want to give up a chance that someone else could take him before them or find himself as an undrafted free agent. So pretty good spot for me.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I could definitely see him. I could pick him ahead of Devin Neal and feel fine about it. You know what I mean? Like if Harold Fanning doesn't exist like in this spot, which he shouldn't really, but like I could see him at the end of the 3rd is my point. So I like Smith there. I think, just what Jake said is true. Like Leo P even talks about this, follow him on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever, where it's like, you have to take into account scheme. You have to take into account all the organizational factors that go into picking players and how they get on the field. And the fact that they allow later round picks to get on the field matters. Bottom line. Taj Brooks, Cincinnati to pair with Chase Brown. We like Taj Brooks enough. I didn't like him as much as Jake. He's one of those darlings in the community. I'm not saying Jake was like the highest ever on him, but I'm just saying in terms of, the show here, I was a little bit lower on Taj Brooks than you. Not that necessarily matters. I think this is actually not a bad landing spot for him, not a bad place for him. But I also don't think this is like really hurts Chase Brown either. So I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I think it's it's a pretty solid pick though in the 4th round. I like it.
Yep. See, the next one is.
Oh, sorry.
You could talk more.
I was just going to say really quickly, sorry, that with regards to their backfields, they just don't have bodies, right? So Zach Moss coming off of a neck injury, they just ended up making some adjustments to his contract. A lot of people are in the space of assuming that very well could mean potentially the end of his career, that they're just trying to help pay off kind of like his retirement. And if we are in a circumstance like that, like legitimately, there's no one after Chase Brown. So I think Taj has a really, really great shot at just being a useful body at bare minimum. If Chase goes down, you now have potentially the starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a great place to be. It's a great backfield to be because it's so thin. That's all.
He's one of the best handcuffs for sure coming out of this draft, honestly. Like if you're talking about pure handcuffs, like that's as good as it gets right there. Just like one guy ahead of him in a high octane offense. So yeah, definitely agree with that. Uriah was about to hop into the Ollie Gordon area here at the 4-4 and 4-5. We have Jordan James. So Ollie Gordon, Jordan James, 4-4, 4-5. I'm not excited about really either of these guys.
Nope.
Gordon less than James, though. James just kind of the team. San Francisco is decent. Gordon in Miami, there's nothing there for me. I think what's his name last year is a better player than him, honestly. Jalen Wright, that got selected there. So yeah, I think he's probably third on the depth chart at best. The most interested I am in a running back, I think here is after those guys we talked about in terms of Brooks and Smith, 406, Kyle Monangai going to Chicago with really nobody else in front of him but what they had before, which was Swift and
Roshan.
Who's the other guy? Roshan Johnson. Yeah. So, I mean, I like that for him. Anybody want to add in some thoughts there?
No,
not really.
Well, I'll talk about him actually in the DU5 chat because I had those 3 picks in a row.
Good talk.
So, yeah.
Good talk. Okay, cool. Isaac Tesla, I think Uriah talked about him quite a bit before, when we were talking about the trade up stuff. So Uriah goes Isaac Tesla at 4.7. I don't love it just because the situation doesn't feel great to me, and I don't see a bunch of usage there for him. But at the end of the 4th round, like, yeah, I get it. Like, he was highly drafted, and why not? Elake Manor goes to Tennessee. I think it was a compensatory pick, maybe they selected him like end of the 3rd or 4th or something like that. So I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of different wide receivers there. They selected another wide receiver, Chimere DK, I think, too, and then they have Calvin Ridley. It's just kind of a lot there for the rookie Cam Ward to feed. So I'm not super stoked about any of them. But honestly, at this point, one of them might shake out. So it's probably not a bad bet to take a shot on one of them. I like Torrey Horton, Seattle. He goes 409. Giddens 410, Savion Williams, I took him at 411. I think the value is good there. I think the dualability, there's something there. And then Gunnar Helm at 412. Solid pick, Tennessee tight end. Any thoughts on the final stretch of this draft, guys?
Not really.
Yeah, I think both Giddens and Savion Williams are 2 just interesting assets, especially at this stage of the draft. I think very much same thing. I feel like I'm a broken record, but depth chart in Indy is just really poor at running back. Clearly, he has to try and quote unquote beat out Jonathan Taylor. But we saw in weeks where Jonathan Taylor has either small injuries or things like that, Tyler Goodson gets a shot. What's that guy who's been in the NFL for far too long? Was terrible. Our boy NFS football loves. Oh man.
No, I was the original truther on this guy. He was at Northwestern. He was at a Northwestern for sure. God damn it! I don't know. I dropped him everywhere. Man, I don't know. I'll think of it in a second.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that there's a really good spot for DJ Giddens. I personally liked his tape too. I don't think there's. I think a lot of people are just.
God damn it!
No, it's not Evan Hull. That's not who it is.
No,
it's not Evan Hull. Right. Yeah, Evan Hull he tore his ACL. He didn't play basically at all, and then he went to Pittsburgh. No,
Khalil Herbert.
DJ Giddens.
I don't know.
No, not.
Look at the depth chart. They got Jonathan Taylor, Khalil Herbert, Tyler Goodson, Salvin Ahmed, and TJ.
You're talking about the little pass catching back that's not there anymore.
Yeah, that's there. It's nothing.
I forgot what his name.
No, I'm talking about.
Jake is looking at us like we're stupid.
He was super hyped up. Give me a second. I have to now look it up and correct.
Wasn't Trey Sermon there last year?
Trace, that's who it is. Thank you.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah.
Trey Sermon.
Yeah, San Francisco's starting running back, and then they pull the rug on you, and then we get Elijah Mitchell, week 1.
Sermon. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Uriah. God bless you.
Former 3rd round running back. Yeah.
All of that to say that I do think that DJ Giddens probably moves directly into RB2 in that team. So pretty solid space for him to be in, even with the draft capital. I just don't have much care about Khalil Herbert or anyone else that you guys stated that's in that or in that roster. So yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right.
Cool.
Well, very good mock draft. Thanks everybody for joining us live to do that. So we could do that. Let's hop in and review our completed DU5 rookie draft, since we got one. And I'm not going to say record time, but
yeah, let me get it.
That thing must have been done in like 12 hours.
Oh my God. We got through that in less than a day. It was less than a day.
Yeah. I mean, I made 2 picks and then it was over the same day. I think it was the same day.
Same day.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think the poll started too that morning. I think Billy
I woke up and I was on the clock basically.
Billy put out a poll. I think 6 people responded immediately. All said yes, and he was like, oh, "Let's run it."
Yeah.
And yeah, literally. But I think the time I woke up, it was like 1:03. I was like, "How is this possible? Where are we? What's going on?"
All right.
Listen, majority does rule when a poll is posted by the commissioner. So that's how it goes.
No, not this conversation.
So no, that's for next week. That conversation is for next week. Don't worry. Okay, Dynasty Underdog 5. So I do think it's kind of I do think it's a good comparison looking at a completed mock draft that we just did, which is super fun. Again, echoing what Jake and Uriah said. Thank you everybody for joining that. Love doing that stuff. Helpful to kind of walk through one of those live and see how it goes. But I think it's also helpful to see like a real draft that has like actual stakes to it in terms of money, where you can do trades, all that kind of stuff. So up here on our screen, we have our 5th ever listener league. Excuse me. Got through this draft in like 21 hours, probably. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean, let's talk through it. There's a bunch of different, I think, selections here than what we saw in our mock drafts. So we're not going to go through everyone, of course, but let's pick out some that we think are worth talking about. I'm just going to highlight a couple in the first round real quick, and then I'll let you guys jump in. I thought Cam Ward at 102, basically flipping Cam Ward and Travis Hunter, was interesting, right?
Yeah.
Travis Hunter at 105, an absolute steal. I love that pick there. Wish I could have got up in there. I didn't really have the capital to do so. So I thought that was interesting, seeing those just flipped. And to Uriah's point, kind of as we were talking about, like, can the quarterback go 102? Absolutely. I mean, right here, you see it happening, right? So I like that. Other than that, you kind of see it pretty much chalked what we just talked about. Caleb Johnson a little earlier, but Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren right at the back end, and then Luther Burden at 112. So pretty chalk, I think, for the first round, other than those 2 picks. What do you guys see? We'll start with Jake, that you want to talk about in this draft.
Yeah, I think the first one is the Igbuka drop. I think that almost falling into the second round was a little surprising to me, and I wasn't quick enough to the trigger, but I definitely would have loved to have traded up into that 201 just to see what that gap is like, because I do think that there's a pretty clear tier break at Igbuka between Igbuka and Matthew Golden. Not that I was completely against going Matthew Golden, like I just said in the mock. I'm a man of my word, and so I took Matthew Golden at the 202, just like I said I would have in the mock. So yeah, I think Igbuka was the first surprise. Any surprise there from both of you?
No,
Definitely
not
Igbuka.
really.
I mean, I agree with Igbuka, and I was trying to get up there, but it just I don't think that I had the capital, and I think once Igbuka fell there, like, it was pretty much locked in pick. So yeah, for me, we talked about the Arroyo Taylor kind of conversation, and then they go back to back. Uriah goes Arroyo, and then I go Taylor right there at 2627, a little bit earlier than what we saw. I think worth mentioning. There's a couple worth mentioning, but I'll just say Harold Fannin, who went 311, went 210 here. Big difference between where he went in the mock and where he went here. So yeah, something to keep an eye on. I think if Harold Fannin falls past the second round, you're going to be wanting to get in on him quickly and maybe trading up to try to do so just for the value, not because we love the player at all. Uriah, anything else in this round or anything you're seeing here?
I just kind of noticed that the tight ends are in the exact same order that they were in the mock we just did. So my guess moving forward is that probably the order in which these tight ends are taken, I don't think it's going to change from league to league very often.
That's a good point. I think you could get just the flip there maybe sometimes with Taylor in the middle, but I do think you're right. It's almost always going to go Loveland Warren, some combination of Arroyo Taylor, and and then Fannin Ferguson. Like that's pretty much what's going to happen. Ferguson at 212, man, it feels rich to me, but I guess maybe I'm just pre-draft bias. I did not expect him to get this draft capital and go to a decent situation like this. So maybe I just have to. Yeah, he did. Maybe I just got to adjust the priors, right? We got to do that around here. Jake probably would mention, if I didn't mention Jalen Rowe going at 2.8. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, I figured you'd like that. 2.8, well ahead of the 3.1 or whatever he went 3.2 area. So yeah, it seems like he's much higher, much more highly valued than maybe we all expect. So pay attention to that. Okay,
this is a real draft. This is not a mock. So I think that this is where it goes back to the conversation real quickly that we're talking about drafting for need versus best player available. I think when you're in a mock, you don't have any needs, right? So it's different. So maybe that's why you're seeing these quarterbacks going a little bit higher and these tight ends going a little bit higher in real drafts, because people do have real quarterback and tight end needs.
Yes.
That's a great point, Uriah. It is a great point. That's what you don't get out of the mocks, is that actual, like I said, the impact, right? There's like an actual impact of the moves you're making. Like you don't really get that. So it's not like, oh, I need this player. You don't really have the same context, and yeah, that definitely impacts things. Okay, so Tyler Shug at 3-1 in our DU5 draft. Jack Beck 3-2. That's a value right there, man. That just feels like a value. I mean, and I'm trying to look at, and maybe that's where he's supposed to be. I'm kind of looking back at the second round, and like, what do you move out of it? It would be one of the tight ends, really.
Yep.
Maybe
it's because
maybe
those tight
take
ends
Jack
win.
Beck over Trey Harris or something like that. But even then, probably not. Probably not. So it's like
I would take him over the two tight ends at the end of the round, I think.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, that's about it though.
Okay. Interesting. Man, that Ferguson pick just looks so high there for me at 212. Okay. Dylan Sampson 3-3. That seems a little high too. I didn't love that pick. I mean, I'm totally comfortable with definitely the next 4 running backs for sure. I'm more comfortable with than Dylan Sampson. And Kyle Williams here at 307. I got to mention, I was sitting at 310 just behind Jake, knowing damn well if I didn't get ahead of Jake, I was going to lose Kyle Williams. And so I ended up moving a 26th third and a 27th third for the 307. And that may sound a little silly, but I don't really feel like it's that much value to give up for what I'm getting. I feel like Kyle Williams should be going, like we talked about in that mock draft, more around 212, 301.
Yeah.
And I think that the return on investment could be much higher than, whatever the random 26th third and 27th third are, especially with my team being relatively competitive looking on paper. So I felt comfortable about giving that capital up to secure a Kyle Williams, who I thought was just dropping way below where he actually should go. So that's my spiel on Kyle Williams. Anything else in this round, or if you want to comment on that, feel free to. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I find it weird that you chose Jarquez Hunter in the mock over Kyle Williams, who you traded up a second, third for. That's a good point, Billy. It's not adding up.
It's not adding up. That's a great point.
I don't see anything wrong with it in the grand scheme of things. I think that that's kind of like where things normally would sit, and I understand the logic. At the end of the day, I'd rather go Williams over Hunter. I just thought it was a little funny given the mock that we just did. That was all.
It is. No, you're right. And as soon as I picked Hunter, I was like, I probably should have gone Williams. But like, yeah, I think those two are the guys I'm like most interested, because Betch is usually gone, but I should probably be more interested in the quarterback. So I do think that you guys have made that point clear, and I'm definitely more on that side of things now. But yeah, I think I am on the whole taking Kyle Williams over Jarquez Hunter every time. And I should have done that in that mock for sure. Okay. So the other one I want to mention, I did take Rashard Smith at 311 there. Is that too much of a reach for anybody over the Giddens, the Jordan James, the Devin Neals of the world, or
it's all the same?
A.O. Manor, all the same?
Yeah, okay. No, I mean, out of all those guys, like I'm going to take Smith upside. We talked about it last time. These other guys are big what ifs. At least there's some backing there from the front office to move up for him. So I don't mind it there.
That's how I felt too. Jake might have been pulling my leg a little bit, telling me I reached on him, but I did feel like I reached on him when I drafted him. And I do think maybe on paper by ADP, it's kind of a reach, but I think, the grand scheme of things, that's kind of where he'll be or where he should be. So I like that pick. Real quick here, Matthew in the YouTube comments, Luther Burden at 12 is comical. So I'm assuming way too high, he's thinking. How far would you be willing to let him fall from there, Jake? Because I know you're pretty high on Burden.
I don't think he falls anywhere out of there. Like, I think the player who falls out and Igbuka gets pushed in for is Tyler Warren. I don't know where else you really want to go with Burden, unless you're just completely fearful that his value is going to drop because of usage for his first year. And it's like, if we're going to use that logic, then we should have done the same thing with Roma Dunze last year. We should have done the same thing with JSN. We should do the same thing with Igbuka. It's like, I just don't know what or how far that's supposed to go. So it's like, I don't know. I need to kind of pick my battles here, and I think 112 is about right, unless that comment means that he should be further up. And if that's the case, I could see myself trying to get Burden over maybe someone like a Caleb Johnson. I can see myself doing it over Jackson Dart. I don't see it over Colston Loveland, so maybe I have him at like the 110 at the highest, but that's probably about it.
I think that's fair. I do think how you broke that down is very fair, but I also think that that the kind of how you said that, just speaking to the narrative of like, these guys will be cheaper down the road. I think it could be true for all these guys for sure. I also think though that it's like very easy to say that, yeah, you can go trade for him down the road. It's like, that's not going to happen for all these guys. You're not going to be able to trade for them for all of them. You know what I mean? So at some point, like if you really think Ibuka is a really good player, or same with Burden, whatever it is, and he's in a great situation, he's going to beat these guys out in a year or two, then you just take him. You just take him there, and like at a reasonable cost. You don't just take them at 105, but you just take them at, that, like Jake's saying, in that area. I think Timothy here, Caleb Johnson at 108 is a tad too high for me. I think so too. I think it's a little high. I think Uriah probably is fine with that, right? Like you're good with Caleb at 108. And it's fair. Like he got really good draft capital. Second round is really good. Like, we were talking a couple years ago, second round's the new first round running back. Like we were just saying that. So it's like the second round is really good capital. He goes to a pretty great situation. I do think he has a little bit of competition, just like Najee Harris did in sharing some of the backfield there. But it's fair to want to like him, at the late first here. I'd be more comfortable with him kind of the 111, 12 area. But it's hard to argue with kind of the situation, I guess. Jake, do you have any thoughts, issues at 108 there, or just Caleb Johnson profile in general?
Yeah, I don't necessarily love the profile as much as Uriah, but I do think that the landing spot is pretty crucial. And I think it's more so also about like the running back landscape and how it's going to basically get overhauled through this draft. Like we are literally going to see over the next 12 months big name running backs borderline die off. And I know that sounds extreme because people have been talking about it for so long, but like the reality is our Aaron Joneses, our Derrick Henrys, they physically just can't keep performing at this level. Like I know we keep saying that, but like it literally has to cut off at some point in time. And when that does happen, these younger running backs are going to be moving into those situations. I just don't really ever have like a fear of Jaylen Warren taking over a large chunk of that offense. He couldn't do it with Najee Harris there. And like they put in the investment into Caleb Johnson. I just don't have that much fear. But at the same time, because of my limitations in his profile, I'd much rather some other targets in this area and then go for something else. Yeah, maybe Derrick Henry is the new Frank Gore. Maybe he plays at 35. That's completely valid. I don't have. They
didn't even do anything to address the backfield there. It is his backfield once again, completely. There's like they didn't do anything. They'll probably grab some vet, backup that does something, decent. But anyway, Shane Trio here, 108 to 202 is one big tier. It kind of is. Like I think there's some guys in there who you may like a little bit better than the next, but it is kind of, tiery for sure. Okay, cool. And so that's the third round. Let's just finish off the fourth round here real quick. This looks, shaken up a little bit, but a lot like what we were looking at in the mock, but it is almost like flipped backwards, right? It's like the guys who are at the front end of the fourth for the mock are at the back end of this one. And I think both you and I, would agree, and we worked out a trade here at the end of this, but would agree that there was some value here at the end of the fourth round. Despite how unlikely it is these guys work out, Taj Brooks, Kyle Monangai, 408, 409, even JCM, Krosky, Merritt, Chamire DK even there at the end is not a terrible value. But those three running backs, Taj Brooks, Kyle Monangai, and Krosky Merritt, were pretty solid values, I'd say, at the end of the fourth round there. And I had those three picks, and Jake traded me a 26th third for those three picks. And it's very likely that, not very likely, but there's a very real chance that Taj Brooks works out well enough to where he's not regretting that 3rd round pick in 26. For me, I had a lot of picks already stacked up in 26, and I figured just kind of keep doing that and take over as much of that draft as possible. It just kind of made sense to move out of this one. I felt like I had a pretty strong team, so I didn't need to add these depth pieces like that. So that was kind of my thinking. So I think it was actually a pretty symbiotic trade, but that's the thought there. Anything else in the 4th round you want to mention?
I think Jalen Royals dropping where he did. I think the 404 is a really good value. I actually tried to trade into both the 4-3 and the 4-4 for the same deal. And I was going to go Taj Brooks, Jalen Royals, which is hilarious. But that's not what ended up happening. And I ended up making that same trade with you. I will say the other thing, just kind of like general thought process, was that I realistically think I can turn Brooks and Monangai and even JCM potentially into 3/3. Right. So if I trade 1/3 into 3/3, it's like, that's if they all don't even really hit, they just move into quote unquote better situations. And that's a pretty good place for me to be. I liked all of the depth charts for all 3 of those dudes. So it's like, who's blocking JCM from touching the ball? It's Brian Robinson, who I don't particularly like. And it's Austin Eckler, who's 29 years old, who's blocking Kyle Monangai. We talked about before. Who's blocking Taj Brooks? We talked about before. It's like, there's nobody. And for me to give up that 3rd sucks. Like, you put that into a calculator, I lose every fucking time. But I think with those values and those players there, it made sense for me too to give up that kind of value to get in here. So it was one of those beautiful symbiotic trades that just happened to work for both of us. If I hit on one of them and they turn into a 2nd, and I hit on the other 2 as 3rds, it's like I make out like a bandit. And if I only hit on one of them, they turn out to a 2nd, it's like, okay, that's also fine. So all in all, this is kind of like where I like to dumpster dive at times if I know that I can. And I had a couple of extra 3rds, I think, for 26. So I sent you one of them that wasn't even my own, and hoping that they end up having a better season than I do. So that's kind of the logic I had in place.
Yeah. And I also foisted some work onto Jake. So I was like, yeah, you go deal with trading these 3 running backs, and I'll not. And so, I mean.
So you're right. You want JC for a 3rd?
I'll give you a 27 4th.
All right, this conversation's over. Let's keep it moving.
We got to end them quick. Don't back and forth. All right.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome. So let's get this going to the Oh
wait, what were we looking for?
Nothing. Apparently nothing.
No, I get it's right back up on the screen if you want it.
If you guys are done talking about this, you guys
I was done talking about it. You seemed like
you wanted
to talk more.
No, good. I was looking for something on the show sheet that's no longer there anymore.
Oh, I blocked it out. Sorry.
No,
that's on me.
All right. Well, that was awesome. We just recapped live mock that we just did live with you guys, and then our first of our last DU listener league drafts that we finished on Monday. After that, want to talk some trades and non-trades?
I think we have one. I think we have one trade. No, you're good. You're good. I think we have one trade here to go over, but it'll be interesting going into next week. I mean, we've had a whole off season, or like 2.5 months of like straight prospect profiles. And so this, we got the mock draft here post NFL draft, we got some rookie drafts going and stuff, but next week definitely we're going to get back into, I think, going under the hood a little bit, maybe talking about some commissioner duties and different stuff we got going on in our leagues and all that. So I think we'll have some fun next week talking about that. But yeah, let's. I think this was a really good time. I hope everybody enjoyed the live mock and going over the DU5 rookie draft. I do think that there's a lot of good information there that you can take with you, and that'll help you in your own rookie drafts. But yeah, anyway, let's hop into the trades here. Take it away, Ra. Go for it.
All right, we have a trade from the Discord. Shout out Discord. 12-team Superflex PPR, half-point tight end premium. We have Malik Neighbors for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
I voted Neighbors.
I mean, yeah, I did too. I don't think Andrews at this stage of his career is really adding a ton of value to any trade. And I just think Neighbors is the kind of elite asset that is, potentially generational type. And while I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think from, a fantasy perspective, he's exceptional, I just see a little bit higher ceiling for Neighbors. And again, Andrews doesn't cover the gap for me.
Yes.
I voted the other way, which is why I added it to the show sheet. I think that this is one of those where we are basing a lot of our predispositions on Andrews, who made an impact in 2024, even though we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show over the last several months. I think that this is one of those where you look back after several months and you think that you actually lost this trade because you don't technically make your team any better. I think from a point scoring perspective, you're not really gaining all that much between Malik Neighbors and Amon-Ra, even if your dynasty value is technically increasing between those two assets. And realistically, you're using or adding an additional starting value tight end, especially even in half point tight end premium. So I looked at this as well, just through like a standard WAR perspective. And even Mark Andrews in 2024, let me pull it up to make sure I'm not talking my ass, and I'll pull up the actual maths. You are looking at tight end 8, who still had close to a 0.8 WAR, meaning that he had basically close to 1 win above replacement versus the rest of the tight end space, as well as in this a specific scoring setting. This is against basically a 4-person flex. So that tight end is basically doing some extra work across the other positions that they can play against. And then Amon-Ra is at 1.64 versus Malik Neighbors at 1.33. And I sit there and I start to ask myself, like, why am I paying what I think could still be a pretty drastic premium when I'm trying to potentially compete? Like, if this is like I'm trying to tier up into a rebuild, I could see kind of the math here making sense. But from like a contending perspective, I just don't understand why I would ever want to make a trade like this. It just doesn't really make sense to me.
That's fair. I mean, I just, I guess I don't see, as much as I love Andrews, I just think, man, like I know we talked again, like you said, ad nauseum about like all of the factors that went into his lack of production, but I think I just don't know if like the offense is quite suited for him, and maybe, you know, it's like a change of scenery could totally happen and all that stuff. I just think the potential like value that Neighbors can hold over time could easily surpass these two, and you could just make out like a bandit from that alone. Like it's not even like if you're like keeping Neighbors long term and hoping that you're getting the same points. Like I don't know. Like I don't hate going the other way. It's Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Andrews, so I'm not like, you know, it's
no, yeah,
it's not like it's not like you're going the other way and it's like, wow, like Amon-Ra, St. Brown. No, like obviously he's going to score probably similar points per game, and you get the added, you know, potential of Andrews there. So I can't scoff at it that much. I think you bring up a good argument though.
All right, Jaden Daniels. You don't see him moved very often, but Jaden Daniels, 25, 202 for Achan. Bryce Young, 26 first, 27 first. Well,
Did this get
Achan
done?
clears.
No.
I'd say Achan clears the 202. So you're looking at trading away Jaden Daniels for Bryce Young and 2 firsts. I mean, after what you saw from Jaden Daniels, I don't even know why you would contemplate moving him right now. For a guy like Bryce Young, who had, although I might be a huge Bryce Young, not fan necessarily, but like booster club, right? Like I want him to do well. Like I'm so happy he came back last year and
booster club
from being benched, right? Having a pretty good finish to his season, and I think I'm pretty much high on the Carolina offense moving forward. I think it's going to get better, right? But Jaden Daniels just had one of the best like rookie quarterback seasons. The whole team's turning around there ever since they got rid of the owner, Dan Snyder, who's a piece of shit. It's just not enough for Jaden Daniels. Plain and simple.
Oh man, yeah, I do kind of lean with Uriah here. Like it's not a bad package. You can't deny that. I just think that I think there's maybe more fragility, obviously in Bryce. There's plenty of fragility that is probably acknowledged by the community, but I think there's even more fragility in A-Chain, and just given kind of the state of that team, running backs are not long, for the league, let alone high end success in, consistently over season to season. So I just, to me, it's like 26 first, 27 first, let's just call him mid. Jaden Daniels, like he easily surpasses, I think, the Bryce 26 first, 27 first, and A-Chain's just not enough to make up the value. I actually kind of love that you're getting a 202 added onto the Jaden Daniels side, to be honest with you. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a trade that hasn't gotten done. It's still in the works. It's still being talked about and negotiated. I kind of fell off and stopped interacting because of other stuff that was going on. But this trade reminds me a lot of a trade that I made to get into CJ Stroud. And maybe I shouldn't be like mentally doing this work in my head, but I currently am.
PTSD.
Understanding kind of the overvaluation of rookie quarterback prospects and how they impact the league, and then how the league then basically is able to then adjust to them. I do think that we very well could see a downturn in terms of production from Jaden Daniels in year 2, but what does that mean? Like, what is that level of downturn? How does that impact his value long term? Like, does Jaden Daniels then come out of whatever that quote unquote downturn is and then have an upturn again? Like, that's kind of the question I have for myself as I'm like trying to kind of work through this, because I would very much rather, in most spaces, tier down from Jaden Daniels, just not down into Bryce Young. like as I don't, and I mean that with no ill will to Bryce Young.
Yeah. And I think if you're thinking that hard about it, about not discounting Jaden Daniels' rookie season, but contemplating what about his downfall, like getting scared or something, like, hey, I'm holding this high value thing, like maybe I need to get off of it now before it explodes. Like, that's not a very good mindset to have about an asset like that.
It's a little galaxy braining going on, maybe a little
just
bit.
Because he did it year 1. It would be different if it was like, okay, he had a slow rookie season, whatever, boom, year 2 he went off. Like, that would worry me a little more. This was year 1, new coach, knew everything, and he went to the NFC Championship. So I don't know. Yeah, let
me be clear. No, I think galaxy braining it is thinking that long term there's an issue. I think it's very likely, and also like it often happens, that there is a regression to the mean in year 2 for these quarterbacks when, like Jake is saying, the NFL gets a better look, through an offseason of their tape. Like, hey, these are the things that he's struggling with, yada, yada, yada. Let's adjust to him. You're going to see, I think, some kind of regression, but like putting, just kind of like throwing the numbers out there. He's at like 21.5 points per game last year, right? Like, what does that downturn look like? Is it like 19 points per game? And then his future is like maybe 22, like more like Jalen Hurts, you know what I mean? Like something like that area. So it's like, I definitely think you could see, and we saw Jalen Hurts, also a guy who took a step down in, after having a good year, like maybe more related to injury and team building, yada, yada, the whole slew of reasons, and then bounce back again. And I think it's very hard to be consistent at the level Jaden Daniels was last year, which is almost why it always comes back down, because it's like you can't be perfect the entire time. He had an exceptional run, and so I think that you build more consistency with experience, and so over time it's a little bit like this, and you're hoping that it just goes up, as the future continues, or as he continues through his career. So just kind of thinking about the numbers was my point there, is like, if he's at 21.5, if he goes down to 19, like, I don't give a shit is my point. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's stable enough to like rise back up above to the elite tier. So definitely Jaden Daniels for me. He's
Billy froze.
Hey, we could talk.
Yeah,
but that was an awkward trade to talk about. No, I get your points and everything. It's just I would just say,
I agree with you.
Enjoy the red is what I'd be doing right now, at least.
Yeah, and I think that's good feedback. And I do agree with you. I am trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate, but I'm also, uh, my team. This is in League of Legends. It very much was like coming out of the ashes, and there is a little bit of knowing that I could potentially put myself in a space where I have, 6 firsts moving forward, and also still have Justin Jefferson, Amon Ra, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Brees Hall, and put myself in a situation where I could potentially, tier up into a different quarterback, knowing that I have those 6 firsts ahead of me. But it's like, why do I want to tier up into another quarterback when all I'm really gaining is Devon Achane into my starting lineup? Like, I guess that's really where I want to start thinking about it a little bit more, and how I can actually like be more impactful to the team itself, rather than just like worrying about kind of like what the future only has in store, but like trying to find other ways. And one of the other ways I've been trying to think about is how to turn Daniels into maybe someone like Mahomes, who has a little bit more of a depleted value in terms of the community, and then find a way to add those 2 firsts on top of him,
Gotcha.
for instance. That would be a great way to do that and not even really worry about Achane. But I already know Uriah has fears about Mahomes moving forward because of offensive coordinator who was there, and how that offense succeeded, or didn't succeed, I should say,
I did
in
draft him in
2024.
DU5.
Did you?
Yeah.
First round?
Yeah, like 107 or something like that. 108.
Okay. Yeah. So you're obviously not
amazing
too
value
out.
for Mahomes, man.
Yeah.
I'd have to go
Yeah.
back, but it was mid to late. I think 106.
There was another startup that we were in this, I was in. I think he fell all the way to like 111 or 112. Like, his value is depleted right now in the market. And it's just like, if I can find a way to maybe get somewhere into that, or maybe it's like add a first onto Brock Purdy or something and try and get into Mahomes. Like, maybe that's what I should be trying to do. But yeah, anyway, it's a different conversation for a different day.
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
That's it.
All right. Well,
remember when Devon Achane was like running back 4 through 6? I feel like that was not long ago. Is
not
that
for
still
long.
a thing? Because
what does his KTC little chart thing look like? It's probably not
bad. No. Anyway, that's all I got. Great job with the live mock. Great job, DU5, getting through that draft so fast. And shout out to all the DU listener leagues. All but one are cooking through their rookie drafts. And having a lot of fun. This is a great time of year, man. We will we'll definitely be back next week with some fun content. Take it easy.